I have 3 questions for you, and if you answer yes to all 3 of these questions, you need to make sure you keep watching this video to the end to learn what your legal rights are. So let me get to the questions. 1, did you live and work in Texas? 2, were you injured on the job? And 3, were you terminated after you were injured on the job? If you answered yes to all of those questions, you need to make sure you keep watching because there are specific legal rights that you have in Texas and you may have a wrongful termination case. My name is Tracey Lewis. I'm an employment attorney with Leeds Law Firm. And in this video, I'm going to explain to you what those legal rights are under the Texas statute that deals with wrongful termination when you have been injured on the job and your employer retaliates against you by firing you. A lot of times we hear about discrimination in the workplace, race discrimination, gender discrimination, sexual orientation discrimination. But what about retaliation specifically connected to getting injured on the job? Texas actually has in its Texas Labor Code something called workers' compensation retaliation. And what this statute says is that an employer cannot retaliate against an employee for getting injured on the job and either actually filing a workers' compensation claim or attempting to file a workers' compensation claim in good faith. So what that means is, let's say you work at a warehouse and you're doing your job, and unfortunately, you have an accident. Let's say in this scenario, a box falls that you're taking down and injures your shoulder, and you're in pain. You're still at work, and you go and find your manager and say, "Hey, I just was injured. Unfortunately, I had an accident in the course of doing my job. The box fell on my shoulder, and I'm really in pain. I think I need to go to the hospital or get medical help." What your employer is supposed to do at that point is get you the medical help you need and help you initiate a workers' compensation claim if the company has workers' compensation insurance. So the next step would be probably to fill out an accident report. Different companies have different procedures, but overall, you should be able to file a claim, make sure that the company is aware of exactly what happened, what injuries you may have, and go off to seek the medical help that you need. Now, let's say in that scenario, the company did have workers' compensation insurance, but instead of filing the workers' compensation claim upon notice that you were injured on the job, the employer says, "I don't really want to file a workers' compensation claim because we are going to get in trouble. I can't do that because the company needs a stellar record of no accidents happening at the warehouse. And so I'm not going to file a claim for you. And I don't know what you're going to do. You should just seek medical attention on your own." So in that scenario, you're unsure of what to do. You're in pain and you move forward and just try to seek medical help on your own. But then you get the medical help you need. You are diagnosed with an injury to your rotator cuff, let's say. So you come back to work and you tell your manager, "I have a rotator cuff injury. I'm going to need to do therapy and I have restrictions. I'm not allowed to lift over 10 pounds until my injury heals." And your manager at first says, "Okay," but then you realize you're being unfairly written up or disciplined, or your manager is treating you negatively compared to other employees. And inevitably, you end up getting fired. And your employer can either actually say, "Hey, we don't feel like we can accommodate you. You had this injury on the job and we have to terminate your employment." Or they make up some other bogus reason of why they need to terminate you. But you just got injured on the job. They had a negative attitude towards your injury and towards you filing a workers' compensation claim. And now all of a sudden you're terminated. That action is illegal, and that is called workers' compensation retaliation under the Texas Labor Code. So if you've been fired in that manner, you really truly may have a wrongful termination case, especially if the injury and your attempt to file a workers' compensation claim happened 3 months or less from your termination date. In those types of situations, I've seen them happen all the time. As an employment lawyer practicing here in Texas, I have many clients who unfortunately have experienced this type of wrongful termination, workers' compensation retaliation, which is a violation of Texas state law. And if you find yourself in that circumstance, although difficult, of course, you're dealing with not only the injury now, but the loss of income because you've been terminated from your job. it's really, really important that you seek legal counsel to make sure that your rights are protected. There are certain timelines within the Texas Labor Code that you would need to file a case if you wanted to move forward with a wrongful termination case against your employer. And it's really important to be able to navigate the legal landscape to have representation and qualified representation that you know will advocate for your rights. In wrongful termination cases, a lot of times you can get settlements. If you have to take it to trial, the court could award you a judgment that will give you money for the time that you've been out of work, for the emotional distress, for the medical expenses that you may have had to incur because you were terminated and no longer had health insurance. So I say all that to say, when you are terminated after an on-the-job injury in Texas, you may have legal rights under state law. So make sure you contact a qualified employment attorney to understand what your rights are and what you can do moving forward.